Hi, I'm Amy Gomer Erickson, and my colleague Patty Noonan and I designed this session on implementing Tier 1 SEL through high-quality professional development. As associate research professors at the University of Kansas, we continue to strive to integrate social-emotional learning within academic content in order to support all students to become career-equipped, socially, emotionally engaged, lifelong learners. The contents of this presentation were designed for the 2021 OSEP conference, but they do not necessarily represent the policies of the U.S. Department of Education. Today, we're going to very briefly overview the College and Career Competency Framework and identify how the process looks for schools implementing Tier 1 social emotional learning with ongoing practice, all the things that are important within implementation, including multi-tiered instruction and intervention, database decision-making, and effective collaboration. And as I said, the why is likely the same why that you have in much of your work: to develop socially, emotionally engaged, career-equipped, lifelong learners. We want to thank the states that have been with us on this journey for the past 10 years. These include Kansas, Missouri, Arizona, and Texas. And so while I can't get into the details because there isn't enough time today, feel free to pause the video here and go to cccframework.org and watch this 4-minute overview video of the competency framework. This provides the research base, more details on what it looks like for schools and for students and for educators. But delving into the what, we have identified 26 competencies or skills that promote student success. These have been shown to improve both in-school and post-school outcomes for students. These are intra and interpersonal, as well as cognitive skills that adults, youth, students use pretty much every day in order to support their success. So take a moment here and think about the students that you are working to influence outcomes for. Which of these competencies has the absolute necessary areas of growth for your students? Which ones are going to have the biggest impact if students become proficient? Now think about any middle school student or middle school students in general, high school students. How many of them are already proficient, competent in all of these? None? I can't think of one. And I've raised 3 children who are continuing to work on these, but so am I. I continue to work on self-regulation, assertiveness, conflict management, and you likely do too. And so by building these skills, we are able to help students be on a path toward success. We have identified foundational competencies, and you'll see those in the green boxes. These are the ones to start with. 26 is too much to start. And so the research shows, as do the perceptions of students and educators, that by building self-efficacy, self-regulation, assertiveness, and conflict management, we can really begin to see measurable changes in students in how they approach their world, engage, be able to take ownership over their learning and over the behaviors that you see. On our website, cccframework.org, we have research guides for every one of these competencies. So please go read the research, come back and contact us. We're always working to expand and learn more. Another really important thing to note about the competencies on this wheel is they are teachable. They are not innate skills. We can teach these, and we have even shown that if students appreciate learning the competencies and apply them almost immediately. So how does a school go about actually implementing SEL instruction at Tier 1? It starts with exploration. That is where implementation science says everyone should start. And so it includes exploring the competencies, determining focus areas, increasing buy-in, and planning professional development. So go ahead and use your phone to follow this QR code where you can see some of the questions that educators or leadership teams ask themselves as they go about determining a focus competency and how to implement the competency framework. As I said, one of those things is exploring resources. These are a few of the resources that are available on our website. Most of these are available for free. They include a sequence of observable behaviors related to the competency that students will build across time, videos that explain the competency for educators, posters that explain the competency for students, and many, many more. We also have a book, The Skills That Matter, that provides a great overview or book study. Another one's coming out this fall, so if you want some new books, we encourage you to check these out. So in addition to just exploring or asking educators, it is also important that we ask students. So this is a little bit of data from 12,000 almost Kansas students. And as you can see, there are some similarities and some slight differences across grade levels and genders. But those foundational competencies pop up all over the place for everybody. Self-regulation, we address sustained attention and initiative within that content. Assertiveness and conflict management are really strong. And then self-efficacy becomes a base to build confidence and understand how to enact actions when you are not feeling confident in the task. So today I'm going to give examples around assertiveness. Schools choose a single competency to focus on school-wide. This has a greater impact than superficially hitting many competencies. We want deep application. So students really understand what assertiveness is, how to apply it, and then do so across the entire school environment. There are examples within every content area class, extracurriculars. The principals and counselors use them, and this language talk about assertive statements with students as they come in for support. But instead of me telling you what assertiveness is, let's have some middle school students. So watch this quick video of Abilene middle school students explaining assertiveness.
Assertiveness is like expressing your wants, needs, and thoughts while admiring or like recognizing other people's wants, needs, and thoughts. So both of you are kind of understanding what each other are trying to communicate.
Being aggressive is like taking control. And then passive is kind of like not saying anything and like people push you around.
Because if you're aggressive, then you're like if someone says something mean to you, then you like fire back at them and are like harsh on them. And if you're passive, you're like just laying low and not saying much at all. And then assertive is just that perfect in the middle like that.
A good example is like when we play basketball downstairs for Girls' Day and they're being unfair with the rules, then I'll tell them my perspective on how the rules are and I'll try to understand their feelings on the rules as well.
I was more passive and assertive than aggressive, but when I was like working in a group, I'd take charge and I'd be the leader and I'd say, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do this. But now that we've learned assertiveness, we all kind of decide what we want to do.
Like, people respect you more, and they like see that you care or whatever.
I kind of say, I understand that you're kind of mad, but we really need to reach an agreement, and could we please try and agree about this and not fight?
Definitely a lot more opportunities, more friends, just a overall better life.
So, what do you think? Did these students automatically, already, innately know how to be assertive? No, they learned these skills and are continuing to practice them. They're not necessarily perfect yet, but they understand how they can apply assertiveness and that concept of respecting others while expressing yourself. It's a very important balance between passive and aggressive. So pause the video for a second and follow this QR code. I want you to reflect on your evaluation in your initiatives. Which of these aspects are your strengths? Which ones do you want to explore or continue to work on? And with the time remaining, I am going to attempt to get into a few ways that we hit these through this SEL Tier 1 work. So after exploration comes installation. Within installation, professional development is a vital aspect. And this is ongoing professional development across a school year. So you can see example dates for school from this past year. And then it includes follow-up steps for next year. But it starts out with really exploring what assertiveness is, making sure the educators feel confident in being able to describe assertiveness, start to use the skills. And what you see within and between these sessions is coaching. And that is really about building up educators' self-efficacy and helping them see the strengths they have, areas to continue to adjust or revise, and be able to collaborate more fully around the instruction, the guided practice, the independent practice with feedback. Also embedded within the professional development process is assessment. Assessment includes knowledge tests for students as well as reflections for educators, and we'll get into those just a little bit more as we go. The entire thing is really designed around this visual. It is moving from a skill to competency. So for students, it starts with acquisition of the skill, and then fluency, generalization, and finally competence. And we do this through instruction, guided practice, independent practice with feedback, and then eventually get to become those cheerleaders where students don't necessarily need feedback, but it's always helpful to hear that they're on the right track and doing this well. Many resources are provided, of course, like all of you in the professional development. One of those is the lessons and student workbook. We use these as starters where we support within the professional development educators to learn the instructional activities, but then adjust them based on their students. So again, pause the video for a second and go see what a group of educators identified. What would it look like if students were being assertive? And so this is part of building the buy-in for educators, is helping them think about when students might use the skill of assertiveness within their daily life, within their courses, in anything that they are working to accomplish. We offer an entire assessment suite. And so for assertiveness and for many other competencies, we have a knowledge test, a questionnaire, which is self-report student behaviors, performance-based observations, and reflections. These create auto-generated student results and an educator dashboard. All of these assessments are free. We encourage you to check them out. They're at researchcollaborationsurveys.org. And we have built the website so that educators can see results for individual students and class-wide in real time and are able to download the raw data. And most importantly, students see their results. So you're able to use this to facilitate self-reflection and to identify some of the areas that students self-report that they want to work on. Teacher choice is vital. We focus on learning targets rather than methods. And so we give numerous examples of instructional activities that can be used to beat a learning target. And then teachers have choice in which ones they're going to do or how they're going to modify them to get there. And here you can see a couple of those learning targets for lessons 1 and 2. Lesson 1 focuses on defining assertiveness, differentiating between passive, aggressive, and assertive, and being able to really think about the why of assertiveness. Lesson 2 focuses on the strengths and challenges, personalized when it comes to being assertive. And then even more important than that base level instruction is the application. And so educators determine how they are going to apply that information, that knowledge, across their content areas or classroom experiences. So here are a few examples that educators can identify to continue that practice on while teaching those instructional activities. And these continue for every lesson that is provided. So this is data from the end of session 1 for one school of teachers. And as you can see, they feel rather confident that they can use or modify the instructional activities and that they can facilitate students' practice. We'd like to see the confidence go up even more. But remember, this is after 3 hours of instruction. And so this is one of the reasons that we provide that coaching after session 1, is building teachers' self-efficacy in providing this instruction. And then we ask similar questions throughout the school year to help ensure that we know where educators are in their own confidence and identify support strategies based on some of their efficacy ratings. Here's some pretest data from students. So as you can see, these students are on a 100-point scale, are giving themselves kind of that D-F range if you gave them a grade for those behaviors around assertiveness, expressing themselves effectively and respecting others while doing so. And so these are self-report scores at the top. And students are able to view this data and analyze the specific items in order to determine areas that they personally want to improve. And then the knowledge test, which actually tests knowledge, definitely shows that students have a lot more to learn. And then we need to reflect along the way. So this is the reflection going into session 2 for this group of educators. How effectively were you able to teach the concepts, the learning targets for lesson 1, 2, and 3? As you can see, the vast majority of educators were able to teach the learning targets for lesson 1. Many of them got to pretty much all of lesson 2 learning target, and lesson 3 is kind of where they're just barely delving into. So this helps us as facilitators to know where the group of educators is and support them. So we might do a quick little review of the lesson 3 learning target and then help move them into some additional instruction around lesson 4 and 5 potentially. So one of the things we are working toward is students becoming proficient in this 3-part assertive statement. It includes an empathy statement, a rationale, and a request. This is a very difficult skill, especially that empathy statement. It is not a blaming statement, it's a true empathy statement. And so if you want to learn more about this, please contact us. We'll share additional resources. But this is something that educators and students have said they have used so much based on this work and the difference it makes when you communicate. For example, via email, when asking for an extension or talking to a teacher, using this has made a huge difference across entire schools. The competency sequence provides that developmental target. So it really starts with that, demonstrates how to ask for help, and all the way up to that generalizing, demonstrating verbal and written assertive statements. So this developmental target sequence supports educators in observing student skills and being able to build on wherever they are in the moment. We cannot assume that all students, just because they're in middle or high school, are up at that generalizing or demonstrating domain. Most are starting at the developmental stage, the very first one, and moving into that emerging stage. So the educators that we work with actually use these sequence indicators through the performance-based observation. And so they identify specific indicators that they are going to observe in their students and measure across time. And oftentimes this means identifying those instructional activities or the classroom environment components that will give students the opportunity to demonstrate these behaviors. And as I said, coaching is vital throughout this process. We have a pretty standardized coaching mechanism that we use, and primarily to support teams or professional learning communities as they think about and talk about continue to expand their instruction. And we really want educators to be supporting each other. So we also have an entire instructional coaching series and support to help educational leaders, teacher leaders, be able to continue to support their teachers across time. So what does it really look like? Well, we have a practice profile for that. So here's what it looks like for educators. This is just a snippet. You can't really read it, but that's okay. We actually ask them to self-rate where they are in this process. So use this rubric and rate themselves. And one of the things you can see here is that for the most part, the educators in this school are identifying that they're at the emerging stage. That means they still have some more to learn, but they are feeling somewhat confident and have been able to facilitate opportunities for students to practice assertiveness and then to provide that feedback and reflection. So I showed you the assertiveness pre-test results a few slides ago. Let's look at some pre-post test results. So now we're to the end of the school year. And as you can see, students in the knowledge test, I kind of have them flipped here from where I showed you a little bit ago. Knowledge tests have definitely increased their knowledge around some of these specific assertive behaviors around the knowledge components. And then they've also increased their self-reported behaviors in assertiveness. And the two in orange are reverse scored, negatively worded. So those we were hoping to see a decrease on, and that you can see here. We also have observed impacts that educators observed in their students. So in these schools, 80% of the educators saw improved in communication from their students. Another 68% saw students increasing their ability to seek assistance and supports. And they said that was one of the biggest ones, especially this year, in having students actually seek out support when they needed it, whether that be a mental health, social emotional support, or an academic support. We also ask educators to reflect on the school as a whole and how this is impacting school culture and overall how staff are effectively able to teach assertive concepts. So let's look at one school and how their students say that assertiveness has impacted them.
It has helped me by, like, when I'm at home or something, like with my sister and she bothers me or something, I don't have to argue with her. I can just, like, tell her nicely to do something. And it helps me a lot with school because, like, when I need to ask a teacher for help, I can actually, like, ask her without, like, saying it in a rude way or something, or just so I can actually speak up more. And I like that it's really easy.
Okay.
So it's not like hard to have to struggle with it or anything. It's like something easy and something that I can actually work with and do. I get like in like a little argument with friends and stuff. So like it's like it helps me like kind of work them out better. And so we're not keep arguing back and forth.
We've been learning that if you're frustrated with something, she's been teaching us not to get angry about it and to talk calmly about it. And so far, there's been 2 kids, I'm not going to say their names, but there's been 2 kids that have been frustrated with their grades and their teacher not grading it, their late work, and she's helped them calm down and talk to her assertively about it. But she has us where if you're passive or aggressive, she wanted us to speak about which one you were. I was more passive about it. I just sit back and let them say what they want to me and wouldn't do much about it. And now I'm more confident, and I'd say that I don't really like how they're talking to me like that, or I would ask more questions to teachers about why my grade is like this, if they could help me with something, and I just feel more confident overall.
Very briefly, I want to talk about sustained implementation goals. And so it doesn't stop 1 year, you're done. No, of course not. This is just the starting point. So at the end of this first year of ongoing professional development, school teams and educators have to determine how they're going to continue to teach students, measure their impact, and expand their capacity. And one way to expand capacity is to really engage the families. Families can be highly involved in supporting social and emotional learning. And we have resources that help schools support families and collaborate with them through translation, student videos, tip sheets, parent trainings. We also have a network of recognized trainers. Of course, Patty and I do not do this work alone. And so we appreciate our network of trainers, and they undergo a rigorous process in order to become trainers. Part of that is being observed while giving training for high quality professional development indicators. These identify the adult learning research and behaviors that can support educators to implement practices. You're welcome to go to researchcollaboration.org, download the measure, contact me if you would like to learn more. We also have a content fidelity observation, which looks at the specific content of the training and the effectiveness of a trainer in being able to deliver the content. We also look at the coaching and provide coaching to the trainers or coaches by doing an observation and having a reflection coaching opportunity with them. And I want you to pause again for a second and make some connections. What are your thoughts? How do all of these pieces of evaluation not only help us know how a school is doing, but build the school's capacity for their own database decision-making, for continually monitoring their implementation and growth across time. And please join us, extend your learning. We would love to hear from you. Reflect on how this can influence the PD you're already providing. Use some of the resources at CCC Framework to learn more. Check out the assessments that we have available. Contact us if we can continue to support you. We appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with you and would love to hear from any of you. Thank you very much.